A very good morning once again, and many thanks for staying with us right here on NTV Uganda. It warms my heart to know that you still stack on the #1 TV station in the country or the whole world, if you will. And I come to you with another pertinent conversation largely focusing on the role of the justice, law and order sector in the promotion of human rights and also accountability. To expand more on this conversation, I'm now joined by Mr. Kamadi Byonabye. He is the Director of Research, Education and Documentation at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. He's not alone. He's also being joined by Jacqueline Okwi. She is the Public Relations Officer at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in that regard. On sign language, you see her right there. That is Susan Mujawa Ananda. She's right there to ensure that this conversation is largely inclusive in that manner. Let me introduce my guests. A very good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, viewers.
And of course, Mr. Kamadi, this is not your first time being here on NTV Uganda. Thank you for joining us. But let me kick off with our very first question. The overall mandate of the Uganda Human Rights Commission and how it fits into the overall vision of the justice, law and order sector. Interest our viewers with that information.
Thank you very much. The mandate of the Uganda Human Rights Commission is well articulated under Article 52 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda.
Indeed.
To protect and promote human rights in Uganda. As you see, JLOS is about justice for all.
Indeed.
So the Commission is a quasi-judicial body that seeks to ensure that victims of human rights violations get access to justice, and that is done through registering complaints of human rights violations at its own initiative or on a complaint made by any person. Those complaints are processed through investigations up to the tribunal level, and if it is found that indeed one's rights were violated, the Commission has a number of ways in which it can address such complaints through compensation or any other legal remedy or redress. That's what the Constitution says. The Commission inspects places of detention to find out, to assess the conditions of inmates and make recommendations to appropriate authorities. Once somebody is arrested, suspects are vulnerable. They don't have, they are voiceless actually, but when you go and speak to them, you get to understand in which condition they are. And it is important to underline the fact that when one is arrested, he or she enjoys all other rights,
including,
with the exception of all rights, because I may not mention them. When you say including, it is easier to talk about the exceptions because they are few.
Indeed.
With the exception of the right to personal liberty and freedom of movement. All the other rights are supposed to be enjoyed by suspects, by inmates in places of detention. So we get there to ensure that that is also part of the right to a fair hearing as enshrined under Article 44, which is actually one of the absolute rights, non-derogable at that. The Commission also conducts human rights education and civic education intended to ensure that we forestall would be human rights violations. Because when you make people aware of their rights, two things happen. They get to know what they're entitled to, and therefore they can demand. And or the other aspects, they get to know redress mechanisms in place should their human rights be violated. So we do that. The Commission also monitors the human rights situation in the country and prepares an annual report to Parliament every year.
Indeed.
And sometimes periodic reports depending on an emerging human rights issue in the country. It is also the function of the Commission under Article 52 of the Constitution to sensitize the public on the provisions of the Constitution as the fundamental law of Uganda, in order for them to defend the Constitution at all times against any form of abuse or violation. So
yes, go ahead.
So when all that is done, the Commission contributes to the protection and promotion of human rights, which is one of the key pillars in ensuring that people live in dignity in this country.
Before we bring in Jacqueline Okwi, talk to us about the death of Medi Kagwe, the former chairman of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. That death did leave a leadership void in the commission. You couldn't expedite tribunals in that regard to bring to book so many of the human rights violations that took center stage, especially in the 2020 election. We saw mass abductions of civilians or NUP supporters, if you will, some of whom are held incommunicado in detention facilities, and some were tortured in that regard, like you did mention, because that is your mandate to monitor. So how did that affect you, the void in leadership before Maria Mwangadia could be appointed as the chairman of the same?
Well, as you know, the commission under the constitution, under Article 51, it states that there shall be a chairperson and at least other 3 members appointed by the president with the approval of parliament. So when you have, even if you have 6 commissioners without a chairperson, the commission is not fully constituted.
Indeed.
If you have a chairperson with 2 commissioners, the commission is not fully constituted.
Indeed.
So the death of Honorable Kago was indeed a great demise to the institution. May his soul rest in peace.
Indeed.
And once that happened, legally the commission was not fully constituted, but the secretariat was there. So like you've rightly said, from that point in time, 20th November 2019, the commission couldn't hold tribunals. But it continued to conduct investigations and preparing for tribunals in anticipation that any time it would be fully constituted. Thank God, as we speak right now, on the 29th of September, the new commission was sworn in, and now it is fully constituted. And as I speak, all those matters which were pending, which couldn't be heard, have already been cause-listed, and the tribunal is starting in mid next month.
And that is good news for the country. Thank you very much. That is Mr. Kamadi Bionarie, the Director of Research, Education and Documentation at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. He's not alone. We also do have in our midst Jacqueline Okwi. Yes, she is the Public Relations Officer at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. We would like to know the overall mandate of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and how it fits into the vision of the justice, law and order sector. Jacqueline.
Thank you so much, Romeo. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is mandated under Article 120 of the Constitution of Uganda to do the following. First, to direct the police to investigate any information of a criminal nature and report to the Director of Public Prosecutions expeditiously. Second, to prosecute criminal cases in all courts in the country with jurisdiction apart from the court-martial, which is the Army Court. 3, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is also mandated, this is through the Director of Public Prosecutions, to take over criminal proceedings instituted by any person or authority that is privately in any court. And the director can choose to continue these proceedings or discontinue them in case there's no evidence. Lastly, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is also mandated, also through the Director of Public Prosecutions, to withdraw cases, criminal cases, from any court at any stage before judgment is delivered, and discontinue them.
All right, let's also bring in Mr. Kamadi Bionarie. Mr. Kamadi Bionarie, why is it so critical for the Uganda Human Rights Commission to focus on the issue of observance of human rights in this country?
Very, very important.
Indeed.
Human rights is about the dignity of the human person.
Indeed.
What is it that you're entitled to as a human being? As an entitlement, they are not favors or privileges. Human rights are inherent. We are born with them. They are universal. So it's one of the tenets of good governance, observance of human rights. You cannot talk of good governance where human rights, rule of law, they are under threat. So you need a society where people go about their daily duties when they are thriving in dignity. And that dignity, to be realized, you must respect, observe people's rights as we know them. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, right to life, freedom of movement, name it, without any interference. I should not walk here, attend TV, and then asked, why are you going there? I should freely move within my country.
If I want to go to Kayunga to attend that by-election, I should be allowed to move.
Exactly. You
but
should be allowed.
Something different, Robert Chagulanyi being stopped.
Now
so those are some of the human rights violations you're talking about.
That's where the challenge comes in.
Indeed.
Yeah. You know, the concept of human rights, rights are enjoyed hand in hand with the duties and responsibilities, but also there are limitations. But unfortunately, the limitations sometimes are not properly looked into. For instance, under Article 43 of the Constitution, human rights can be limited for purposes of public order, public security, public morality,
protecting the rights of
public health.
I see.
But the limitations should be demonstrably justifiable in a free and democratic society. And the limitations do not allow political persecution. They do not allow detention without a trial. So the limitations must be legal, they must be necessary, they must be legitimate and proportional to the threat at hand. So the issue of limiting human rights is well grounded within the law, but the challenge is usually during implementation.
Political persecution, limiting movements of persons, and also the issues you mentioned did take or transpire during the just concluded election period. What is the pronouncement of the Uganda Human Rights Commission on all these human rights violations?
That's why you started with asking me about our functions. So when people's rights are violated, the Commission is there to offer redress. It is one of the redress mechanisms in Uganda.
I see.
And I'm happy JLOS has hosted us here this morning because it supports the Commission to resolve complaints of human rights violations. So if you want to go to Kayunga and you feel you have been unjustifiably restricted, you are free to report to the Commission. The Commission will investigate and establish whether your complaint is genuine or not. Because sometimes there are complaints we receive and they are dismissed when they do not merit or they don't add up to our admissibility criteria. But if you have a genuine complaint, the Commission is there to look into it and offer you the necessary redress. And that's why we are here to sensitize the public, urge them, if anybody's human right is violated, the Commission is more than willing to take on such a complaint.
How many complaints have you registered as the Uganda Human Rights Commission, at least since 2020, when people were being disappeared, when people are being held without trial and so forth, were being tortured in detention? How many of these numerous reports did you receive, and how have you responded to the same?
We have quite a number of complaints in the system being investigated.
Indeed.
I may not specifically categorize them as those related to elections or specifically. I don't have that statistic off cuff.
Indeed.
But I know we have over 1,000 cases under investigation, and those include those ones which were registered during the election period. But like I told you earlier on, we are investigating them. Actually, I would like to thank JLOS on behalf of the Commission, because the JLOS provided funds for doing special investigations, and a lot of those complaints are now ready for the tribunal.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, we also do know that the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions also operates an anti-corruption department, and that is the Directorate of Prosecutions in that regard. So we'd like to know more about the function of this department with Jacqueline Okwi. Now, I'm sure you do know what we're trying to do here. When it comes to Mr. Kamadi Bionari, he's handling the issue of human rights. You understand? And when it comes to Jacqueline Okwi, she's handling the issue of accountability, corruption, and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. So talk to us about this Directorate of Prosecutions. What is entailed in this department?
Thank you so much, Romeo. So it's called the Anti-Corruption Department,
Indeed.
which is under the Directorate of Prosecutions. And it's mandated to handle and prosecute corruption and money laundering related cases. Specifically, the functions are the following. The first being to conduct prosecution-led investigations.
Indeed.
Prosecution-led investigations are investigations that the prosecutors or the prosecution gets involved in at the earliest opportunity, that is as and when a case is reported,
Indeed.
a criminal case. The department is also mandated to make prosecutorial decisions, and that is when after investigations, the file is brought to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor peruses the file and has to make a decision. It could either be sanctioning of the case, which means that the case would go to court for hearing, or the case could go back to the police for further inquiry, or the case file could be closed just in case the evidence is insufficient to sustain a charge. The other function of the department is to prosecute, actually prosecute the corruption-related cases as well as money laundering cases. And the department also handles and prosecutes appeals in various courts, especially the High Court, Magistrates' Courts, that is particularly the Chief Magistrates' Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. The department also handles miscellaneous applications.
I see.
Those include bail applications. They could also be applications for revision and the like. The department is also involved in issuing instructions, administrative instructions in respect to public officers who are charged with corruption-related offences.
How many of those have we
For purposes
nabbed?
of sanctioning.
That is where the interest of the viewer is. Yes, public officials who are
who have been
implicated
charged,
in corruption.
Yeah, who have been implicated in corruption cases, those who have been convicted.
Do we have the numbers?
I think it's about 63 for the past
63.
For the past year, yes, since last year.
Okay.
Yes.
Update us on that. Investigations, you nab them, or they, prosecuted? Are they in jail? What are we looking at now?
So when they're taken to court, of course, we prosecute them. We call the witnesses who give the evidence against them, and then the court uses that evidence to make determinations in respect of the cases. So they're either convicted if there's evidence against them, or they're acquitted.
I see.
And the courts can go ahead to make orders, like compensation orders.
If this
payment
person
of
was,
fines
I see.
and the like.
Indeed. Also, what are some of those JLOS institutions that aid your work in this crusade against corruption?
So we partner with a number of institutions in ensuring that we do our mandate. I have mentioned the police. We direct the police to do investigations in these cases.
Indeed.
So, of course, Uganda Police Force.
Courts of law?
The courts of law, that is the judiciary, where we take the cases and we prosecute them. Of course, Uganda Prison Service, because they're the ones that actually incarcerate the suspects and the convicts. So mainly those ones.
What would you say are some of the challenges dogging the ability of the Directorate of Prosecutions to actually mount this crusade against corruption? What are some of those challenges you've encountered along the way?
So some of the challenges include delayed investigations. Most of these cases are very complex cases. They involve obtaining evidence from institutions, and it takes quite a bit of time. And depending on the complexity of the matter, the police may delay in carrying out investigations.
Indeed.
Yes. And then we also have a problem of protection of witnesses. You know the complexity of these cases. You find that a case involves witnesses who are actually within an institution where the suspect came from. So the witnesses really need to be protected.
So it's hard to blow the whistle against your own boss. And we've had situations whereby people who are actually blowing the whistle are being fired. So this person who is being investigated will find out, oh, it was Romeo Busiko who reported me, and I'll lose my job. Is this happening?
And it's very difficult, especially considering the fact that we have no witness protection law.
Indeed.
Yes, and so it becomes really complex.
Isn't that watering down the fight against corruption?
However, we have, for instance, in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Department of Witness Protection and Victim Empowerment, and we have some guidelines in that respect, so that is what we are using. So we're able to do some protection of witnesses through the department as well as through the police. But of course, it is not as easy without a legal framework.
Aren't we fighting a futile war, Jacqueline Okwi? The fact that we do not have a very, very strong witness protection law, you understand that we'll go ahead to guarantee protection to these victims or people who actually want to blow the whistle against those who are corrupt. Don't you think people might stop to, come out publicly to point a finger at these individuals in the wake of the absence of this witness protection law?
Like I said, it's a challenge, but I also mentioned the ability of the institution as well as the police
on its own.
Yes, to be able to protect some of the witnesses. So we still encourage the members of the public to cooperate with us.
I see.
Yes.
That is Jacqueline Okwi, Public Relations Officer in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. In our midst is also Mr. Bionabye Kamadi. He's also with us, Director of Research, Education and Documentation at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. The financial year 2020-2021, what would you say were the major key achievements of the Uganda Human Rights Commission with the support of the justice, law and order sector, of course?
Well, JLOS supports the Commission every financial year.
Indeed.
It might be practically difficult to single out one major achievement because the support is to all functions of the Commission. So if that is what I can call an achievement, it was an achievement. Investigating cases of human rights violations, which I've just told you as a special program.
Indeed.
It was because you cannot proceed with the tribunal if investigations are not concluded. That to me stood out as one of the key aspects because it was specially supported. But we also did human rights education, community meetings, barazas in villages, radio talk shows, IEC materials, sensitizing the public on their rights. We also inspected places of detention and helped quite a number of inmates whose rights were at stake. But
what did you see in those detention facilities?
I could also point out...
What did you see in those detention facilities when you went there?
Well, the most challenging aspect is detention beyond 48 hours. As required under Article 23 of the Constitution.
As a victim also?
Yeah, then there is overcrowding in prisons, but also there was a challenge of COVID. The system was not as efficient as it was before the outbreak of COVID.
What about the challenge of torture?
Torture remains also a challenge because we just released the annual reports on Monday this week. Yeah, and torture is one of the complaints that we received, but not necessarily from detention centers.
I see.
Yeah.
During the arrest?
During the arrest. Actually, when these suspects are taken to prison, they will tell you they are okay there. The Uganda Prison Service is doing well in terms of protection and promotion of human rights. They try their best. Yeah. So torture is usually during arrest, and you'll find the people, when you find the people in prison, they tell you we are tortured at the police or by the police during arrest and that time of statement taking and etc. Yeah. But on the whole, I would like to commend the Uganda Prison Service. We inspected prisons across the country. Of course, not all of them, but a sizable number in all regions because we have 10 region offices across the country. But you find that inmates, they are given meals and in good time and adequate at that. The prisons are properly cleaned they live in a clean and healthy environment. That is also very critical. They have access to water. They have, they watch TV. They might be watching me now here. Yeah, they have TV facilities where they converge.
But you do have Muhammad Segirinya, who was saying they couldn't even allow him to actually get access to his lawyers and so forth.
Well, that is an allegation that we would have to verify for sure.
Right.
But I'm giving you what we have found out generally across the country.
According to the assessment,
yes, according to our assessment. Of course, there are some challenges here and there.
Where were the gaps?
But I'm giving you. The gap is largely on overcrowdings and occasioned by overstay on remand. Although there is a general improvement on overstaying on remand as per the JLOS report, but you know, there is a difference between figures and the actual situation on the ground. But again, that is not a problem of prisons. It is an issue to be handled by the entire criminal justice system. Because for the Uganda prisons, they just tell them, produce these people, take in these people. Actually, for them, it's not their problem. The issue of the delayed conclusion of cases and the overcrowding, it's not their problem. But it's a challenge that needs to be addressed. But I also wanted to talk about one other single achievement in as far as JLOS support to the Commission is concerned, was the conclusion of the Gulu Regional Office construction. You see, most government departments rent office premises, which affects the literal money that is available, which would have been injected in other service delivery programs. So JLOS supported the Commission, and as we speak, the Gulu Region Office block is complete and shining within Gulu City. That was a major achievement. Yeah. Another
miss could have been the fact that we couldn't actually hold these individuals to account into this tribunal, those people who are violating our citizens in that regard.
Certainly there was that challenge of lack of a tribunal for the reasons we have already talked about. But that has since been addressed. Yeah.
Do we have some individuals we are keeping our eyes on? Are you actually focusing your eyes on some individuals right now?
We don't focus on specific individuals. We focus on any person who has violated human rights. So the complaints are many.
Right now?
I've told you we have over 1,000 cases of alleged human rights violations. Actually, those ones going to the tribunal, they stand at 1,500. So if you ask the individuals we are focusing on, my answer would be yes, those are the 1,500 individuals.
I see.
Yeah.
You have the United States that is saying, you know, Mr. Abel Kandiho, that is the chief of military intelligence. He was involved in the abductions of the individuals in 2020 November, and also the torture of such suspects in many of these incommunicado detention facilities. So in that regard, could we say that we should be seeing some of these individuals like Abel Kandiho go to your tribunal and others who are involved or implicated in these human rights violations?
He cannot come to our tribunal if nobody has reported the case against him to the Commission.
I see.
Yeah. The Commission handles complaints that have been brought to it. So, but also I should bring to your attention and our listeners that the Commission under Article 53 of the Constitution is barred from handling a matter between government, an individual and an international organization or a foreign government. So we don't investigate such a matters. I think that question would best be handled by the
so you're telling
US Embassy.
You're telling us right now, if none of our citizens come out to report Abel Kandiho, to report any of these security officials who were involved in these heinous operations, nothing will be done by the tribunal?
That's for starters, yes, but let me put it in perspective. The Commission under Article 52 is mandated to investigate complaints of human rights violations which are reported to the Commission or on its own initiative. So it is not true that if violations are occurring in the country and nobody has reported, that the Commission cannot do anything. We have handled quite a number of complaints as on our own initiative. But to answer you directly, the Commission cannot hear on any TV news that one Abel Kandiho has been indicted by, say, the United States Embassy or government, and then it organizes a tribunal to hear such a matter. No, we don't work that way. A matter that goes to the tribunal should have been reported, or an investigation should have been initiated by the Commission at its own initiative, and then a due process is followed. So we don't jump on matters because they have been reported in the press anyhow like that.
So that means Abel Kandiho was never investigated even before the Americans
I
came up with their
don't know of any human rights violations as committed as an individual, for sure.
That is fair enough. Indeed, Kamadi, the Director of Research, Education and also Documentation at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Jacqueline Okwi is the Public Relations Officer at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. We'd like to find out more that is being done to ensure that institutions that are fighting corruption are actually bankrolled with enough funding, and also the other functions that they need to be stronger in that regard. How is this sector, the justice, law and order sector, particularly the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, engaging in issues of ensuring improved service delivery to our citizens and also ensuring the effectiveness of these institutions that are fighting corruption in Uganda?
Thank you so much, Romeo. I earlier on talked about prosecution-led investigations. This is something that we have embarked on as the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to ensure good quality investigations in corruption-related matters.
Indeed.
And so through prosecution-led investigations, we are able to get good quality evidence that will most likely lead to successful prosecutions of these cases. Secondly, together with the justice, law and order sector, we have embarked on what we call plea bargaining. Plea bargaining is one of the ways of fast-tracking the cases. So through plea bargaining, accused persons negotiate with the state, that is with us, and they opt to plead guilty to the charges against them for lesser offenses, or they may choose to opt for minor offenses but related to the charges. And through this, the cases are fast-tracked because plea bargain cases don't really go to court for hearing. They end at that point of agreement.
So if I swindle 80 million and have a plea bargain, that's what we are talking about.
Exactly.
And I plead guilty.
Plead guilty
Indeed.
And get a
Lesser
sentence.
charge.
So you agree with the state for a certain kind of sentence.
And those plea bargains exacerbating the problem of corruption, Jacqueline Okwi, the fact that an individual might know, okay, if I swindle 800 million Uganda shillings, I'm just going to plea a guilty and a verdict to be reduced.
Not exactly, because we ensure that the plea bargains are fair.
I see.
Yes, for instance, we recently launched the plea bargain guidelines for prosecutors to guide the prosecutors on how to do these plea bargains. And one of the measures in the guidelines is to ensure that a sentence is commensurate to the offense committed. So it's not really a handshake.
Indeed.
It's not a handshake. We make sure that they don't get handshakes. Yes. And then there's been capacity building of the prosecutors. So prosecutors have been trained in anti-corruption, asset recovery, and cybercrime, managing cybercrimes, because, you know, corruption cases are usually related to cybercrime. We have also embarked on asset recovery.
Indeed.
This is ensuring that the proceeds or the benefits of crime, of these corruption cases, the benefits and proceeds are got back, they're recovered. So we have an asset recovery unit which operates under the anti-corruption department, and through this unit we are ensuring the recovery of proceeds of crime. Yes, and we have also engaged in sensitizations.
I see.
Sensitizations about corruption to inform the public of the dangers of corruption and also what we are doing about handling corruption. So we have gone out to speak against corruption. Yes.
Do you have more tangible measures being put in place by the ODPP to ensure that you clamp down on corruption? Just like the IGG is doing with her lifestyle audit, where she's saying if you're getting 100,000 Uganda shillings and you have a house of $100 million, you should be investigated. What kind of tangible measures are coming in from the ODPP?
Okay, the other one that I should have mentioned also earlier is the complaints mechanism that we have.
I see.
We have a complaints mechanism wherein we allow members of the public to complain against public officials that are involved in corrupt practices. So complaints, according to that complaints mechanism, should be registered first and foremost with the resident state attorneys at the different stations. And if there's no assistance or if there's dissatisfaction with decisions that are made there, then they're escalated to the regional officers at the regional offices. If there's dissatisfaction with the decisions, then they're escalated to the DPP at the head office. And at the head office, we have a complaints management office. This is the one that specifically deals with the complaints at the head office. So complaints can be lodged against officers within the ODPP, even police in relation to the management of criminal cases.
Indeed.
Yes.
All right. You're doing amazing work at the ODPP, but then you also do have the IGG that is doing the same. You also do have the anti-corruption, State House. They're also doing their own thing. Anti-corruption unit. They're also doing their thing. You're doing your thing. The IGG is doing her thing. And so many people are saying this multifaceted approach towards corruption and the fight towards corruption might be actually very, very hard to achieve your targets because you are attacking this problem in so many different directions. You do have the ODPP, the IGG, the Anti-Corruption State House unit. So why don't we actually attack corruption as one unit? Don't you think it will be much more effective because we are talking about effectiveness of these institutions against corruption?
Well, you see, all these institutions have something that they're contributing to in regard to the fight against corruption. And that is why, for instance, they came up with the interagency forum that brings together all these agencies that are fighting corruption. So we're actually working together in the fight against corruption, and I think you could see that during the anti-corruption campaign week. Yes.
All right, that is Jacqueline for you. She is the Public Relations Officer at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. Let's also bring in Vionabie. Mr. Kamadi is going to be talking to us about some of the issues that transpired during the 2020 election and what proactive measures have been put in place since then by the Uganda Human Rights Commission to ensure clear observance of human rights. Go ahead.
Well,
proactive measures.
Important to recognize that elections are a process. It's not an event. And for us at the Commission, we have put in place an early warning mechanism. Early warning to ensure that if there was a mistake in 2021, it shouldn't be repeated in 2026.
I see.
Yeah.
What kind of mistakes are we talking about?
Civic education. We quite have a number of people who do not appreciate the why question. Why should I vote for you and not her?
Indeed.
I've heard some people saying, that guy is handsome, I will give him my vote.
Just that?
Just that, yes. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Then we have had cases of...
he has too much money.
He has too much money.
Indeed.
You have had cases of his... my tribe's mate. That should never be a qualification. That should never be a yardstick.
Only merit.
We should stick to merit. Because if you do that, then you are denying yourself an opportunity of somebody who would really focus on service delivery. So the issue of civic education. And since we are here under the auspices of JLOS, and I'm sure they are all watching and listening, we need more money for civic education. People need to understand why they vote, the value of the vote, and what it means in terms of holding the office bearers accountable We are talking about issues of accountability here.
Indeed.
It's not enough to be a chairman LC1 and you simply sell the stamp to people who need to be helped. It is a service. The stamp is already there as an office tool. Why should people pay every time you stamp their letter to go and get a passport? You know, that is a service you are ordinarily expected to offer as chairman LC1. Now, when people are not sensitized and informed on these things, their rights are violated. They become victims. So the issue of civic education is very, very important. But also urging people on the important aspect of unity in diversity. We should avoid violence.
Indeed.
An election does not mean that you fight. This is a message that should continue being spread and putting in place mechanisms of addressing these aspects, especially in the hot spots. We want civic education, first of all, generally, but all specifically which is targeted to those hot spots where there was violence, where there were challenges, in order to ensure that we avoid a repeat of the same.
Indeed.
It may not be for purposes of 2026 alone. By-elections occur all the time. Just like yesterday you saw a number of by-elections taking place in various parts of the country. A by-election is as good as an election, except it is coming after a major election. So we want to ensure that people do not fight, do not kill each other because of elections. So we want to continue engaging peaceful dialogues with various stakeholders in various parts of the country.
What about issues of beatings that are taking center stage at the hands of the security forces, torture, if you will, in this Kayunga by-election? Even us, the journalists, some of us are in jail somewhere in Kayunga, simply because the officials did not want us to go with our gadgets and
I
so
will
forth,
take you back to what we've just talked about. They say you can take cows to the river, but you don't force them to drink. We have a robust legal framework in place, you know, to offer redress to victims of human rights violations. I want people to be confident and make use of the existing state institutions. The Uganda Human Rights Commission is one of them. Let victims of human rights violations report. Earlier on, I told you there are cases we've been investigating. So our offices are available. Unfortunately, the violations are regrettable because we are not interested in postmortems. We try as much as possible to sensitize those involved in these processes not to violate people's human rights. But since we are not on the ground, should these violations occur like the ones you've talked about, our office was in Kayunga yesterday. We monitored that by election. That is one of the interventions. We are also working right now with the Electoral Commission on aspects of inmates and the diaspora voting. You remember it was not possible in the 2021 elections. But now the EC has taken it up, and as a key stakeholder in ensuring the right to vote is realized, we are in discussions over that issue. So the issue of torture, with or without an election, freedom from torture is one of the absolute rights in our constitution. Under no circumstances should a citizen be tortured. Security agencies, we have sensitized them once, not time and again, to observe human rights in the performance of their duties. And this is a constitutional dictate under Article 221. They know it very well. Those who don't know, we continue to urge them. It's not a choice. So really, if we are to nurture the rule of law in our country, respect for human rights, why do you descend on a fellow human being and beat him up? What became of our conscience? Human dignity. Why should you beat an adult of sound mind? This is a father this is someone's daughter, this is someone's wife, and then you are beating people as if you are beating snakes. It's not right. It's not right, and our role is to urge those involved to stop. Those who have done it, they should be held accountable. The accountability institutions are available under the justice, law and order sector, what we are talking about now. So I encourage those whose rights have been violated to report to the relevant institutions, starting with the Uganda Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Enforcement Act is one of the fresh laws in place, and the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act. So people who have been tortured can petition courts of judicature, and their matters, I'm sure, will be looked into.
All right, let's talk about transparency and also accountability in the way the processes are being expedited at the ODPP. Of course, the Justice, Law and Order sector expedited a digital transformation initiative. And of course, we'd like to know how digitization is going to help us improve accountability and also the effectiveness of this fight against corruption.
Thank you very much, Romeo. I'll start by saying that the Justice, Law and Order sector embarked on reforming case management in the Justice, Law and Order institutions, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions inclusive. So in the Office of the DPP, they introduced what we call the prosecution case management system.
I see.
That is PROCAMIS. I'll speak also in the judiciary.
In like 54 jurisdictions, I believe.
Yes. For example, also in the judiciary, there's an electronic case management system, and then the police also have, And at the moment, they are also engaging in integration of these systems so that there's sharing of information. So that is going to be one of the benefits.
To reduce case backlog.
Yes.
I was looking at the numbers from you discarded 156,000 cases against the 130,000 cases in the previous year.
Yes.
That is a milestone.
So there's going to be sharing of information amongst these institutions, the criminal justice institutions, and that should be able to make case management easier. It is also going to reduce physical handling of files and documents, and that would inevitably minimize risks, corruption risks, for instance, destruction of evidence, manipulation of evidence, that's manipulation of the files. So through digitization, everything will be in a system and will be handled in the system. So less handling of files and documents. And then also this will enable easy tracking and monitoring of management of cases. So through the systems, managers will be able to assign tasks and roles in respect of these cases, and they'll be able to track and monitor how a case is being handled. And this will also help with ensuring that cases are handled quickly.
I see.
Execution. Because, for instance, the officers will know that the managers are alert, attentive. Everyone is seeing what is happening in the system.
Indeed.
So they'll be forced to work fast, to act very fast on the cases.
Of course, before embarking on this digital transformation, you did have issues to do with mobility of many of these convicts all the way to the JLOS service points, like maybe the courts of law. But then there's video conferencing. That is new technology that you did introduce. You don't need to go to the court of law. You can just stay there and we link up to you via Zoom. Talk to me about that.
Yes. So video conferencing is also one of them, recording of what is transpiring in court. This, the Justice, Law and Order sector has also done and ensured that proceedings are done through Zoom. Yes. So that is one of the benefits.
Bionabi, talk to us about the human rights-based approach. What is entailed in that?
The human rights-based approach is a conceptual framework that seeks to achieve human rights through programs, policies, plans, and everything undertaking a country embarks on.
Indeed.
You know, promotion and protection of human rights is a primary responsibility of the state.
Indeed.
Yeah, so the human rights-based approach seeks to ensure that the most vulnerable are not left behind through planning, because the process is good as the outcome. Initially, we were looking at development as a standalone and human rights also as a standalone. But now the approach seeks to merge the two. You don't say you are going to invest in infrastructure and then you keep your eyes closed about human rights. If you are constructing a road, are you evicting people and without compensating them? Will you be happy to have a road and those who are able to use it using it when the people you evicted are being beaten by the rain, or they cannot take their children to school because they were evicted? So it is an undertaking that seeks to ensure that no one is left behind in the development process. It requires that whoever is involved in planning for the country, whether at national level or at local level, you identify what is the human rights problem that is likely to result from a development undertaking, and who has something to do about it. What is the problem? Who has something to do about it? And what should be done to ensure that nobody is left behind. And in this regard, it is important to focus on issues of participation. Speak to people, understand what their problems are, and then address them. Don't think for the people. Don't think the poor people do not have a voice. And then you sit in a boardroom, do a program, and say that's what we have brought for you. No. Speak to them.
Indeed. And the viewer who is watching would like to know what kind of mechanisms you've put in place as Uganda Human Rights Commission to ensure the protection of the rights of these vulnerable people, now more than ever.
Interesting. We have a similar program this afternoon. That's not an advert.
2:30 to 4:30.
Yeah, you know it very well.
Yours truly as the moderator, Romy Musiku. Look out for that.
Yes, so we shall be talking about the rights of the vulnerable persons in detail. And we shall articulate again issues of the human rights-based approach. But it requires to ensure that it is a people-centered approach. Whatever you do should be about the human person as the central subject of development, whatever undertaking you embark on. And that is now the policy shift as enshrined in the Constitution of Uganda. NDP 3 is speaking to that. And as the Commission, we have been working with the National Planning Authority and the district local governments to integrate human rights in the National Development Plan 3 and also integrate human rights in the district local governments. The idea is the approach seeks to ensure that human rights are protected and promoted as a matter of obligation, as a legal issue, not as charity. It's not about helping people. So when you are when you are designing a program, you should be able to say, I'm designing this particular program. It speaks to this right as provided for under Article this of the Constitution. So that when monitoring and evaluation is being done, we will see to what extent did you contribute to the protection and promotion of human rights as a matter of obligation, not as charity. Like
and
we
of
say,
course, that conversation on the vulnerable persons shall be expounded on during the e-dialogue that is going to be taking center stage between 2:30 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. We shall be live. Let's also bring in Jacqueline Okwi to talk about what kind of JLOS structures or mechanisms have been put in place at the ODPP to ensure the fostering of an environment that will ensure accountability in terms of service delivery.
Okay, thank you so much. I already talked about PROCAMIS.
Indeed.
PROCAMIS. It is one of the mechanisms that has been put in place in the ODPP of Uganda through the justice, law and order sector.
Indeed.
So PROCAMIS is a prosecution case management system that ensures that information about cases is put into one system and is accessible by the officers within the system. It has been rolled out in 52 stations out of 131 stations. the justice, law and order sector has also embarked on evaluation, supervision, monitoring and evaluation through capacity building of the public PPUs within the office. So they have built their capacity, they have provided tools for managing cases.
Moving forward, Jacqueline Okwi, what will it take to actually ensure that we root out this problem of corruption in Uganda once and for all? What will it take?
It will take the public, involvement of the public in reporting the cases to the anti-corruption agencies.
Introduction of witness protection law.
Yes, introduction of the witness protection law. We definitely require more capacity building through training of the prosecutors and all those involved in fighting corruption. More funding, certainly, to build the capacity of the institutions.
Indeed. And of course, we've come to the end of this conversation. Yes, I did have Mr. Bionabye Kamadi, the Director of Research, Education and Documentation at the Uganda Human Rights Commission, and also Jacqueline Okwi, the Public Relations Officer at the Director of Public Prosecutions in that regard. Thank you very much for having made the time to speak to us. And we're talking about the role of the justice, law and order sector in the promotion of human rights and also accountability. That's it for this conversation. Look out for NTV at 1 coming to you in an hour or so. We'll be right back.